This is Shabbat VaYakhel. Some of you may not know a little bit of my story, which is that in 1977 I moved to Washington, D.C. to work with the Living Stage Theater Company, whose mission it was no less than to change the world, one human being at a time. How did we do that? And we really did create the container for transformation by reminding everyone who we worked with that they are an artist, that they have the capacity to see the world uniquely in a way that only they could see it, and to change the world. And maybe perhaps more importantly, to change and see themselves through that change. Because only when we do that self-care and see the light within can we begin to repair this world. So, Shabbat VaYakhel. What does my experience of Living Stage have to do with this week's Parsha? Well, what does Rembrandt have to do with any of it? Rembrandt, the master of light and shadow. You're looking at one of his masterpieces, Belshazzar's Feast, depicting the biblical story from the book of Daniel. You may not be aware that Rembrandt liked to hang out in Amsterdam with Jews. And he gave credit to his relationship with his Jewish friends to having a profound effect upon his work. This is Rav Kook, Rav Isaac Kook, the first chief rabbi of Palestine. And this is what he said. When I lived in London, I would visit the National Gallery, and the paintings that I loved the most were those of Rembrandt. In my opinion, Rembrandt was a saint. When I first saw Rembrandt's paintings, they reminded me of the rabbinic statement about the creation of light. When God created the light on the first day, it was so strong and luminous that it was possible to see from one end of the world to the other. And God feared that the wicked would make use of it. What did God do? God secreted it for the righteous in the world to come. But from time to time, there are great men and women, I will add, whose God blesses with a vision of that hidden light. I believe Rembrandt was one of them, and the light in his paintings is that light which God created on that first day. Wow. From this week's Torah portion. Kechu mitchem truma l'Adonai kol nediv libo yevieha et trumat Adonai zahav achesed unechoshet. Take from you gifts. Take from among you gifts to Yud-Heh-Vaveh. Everyone whose heart is so moved shall bring them gifts for Yud-Heh-Vaveh, gifts of gold, gifts of silver, and gifts of copper. Now, obviously, these are the things, or some of the things, that were made from those elements. Blue, purple, crimson yarns, fine linen, and goat's hair, as Judy reminded us before, as well as tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood, which of course brings up the following. What the? They were schlepping dolphin skins? Me'efo? From where did they get those? And you know, there's a wonderful midrash that Yitzchak, that Yaakov, that Jacob looked ahead. He saw the future, and on his way to Egypt, he planted stands of forests of acacia wood, so that when the Israelites left Egypt, they would take some of it with them. You know, some of these stories in our great myth we have to hold very, very lightly. Pun intended. What else did they bring? They brought oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil, and for the aromatic incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastplate. And as I mentioned before, V'chol chocham lev bachem yava'u v'yasu et kol asher tziva Adonai. All who were moved by their hearts, by the wisdom in their hearts, they brought and they did what God had instructed them to do. And you can also build the tabernacle, my friends, by purchasing, for a limited time only, the Ark of the Covenant with tabernacle furniture, a Bible history craft, available only from whowhatwhyseries.com. If only we had sponsors for Moshe, yes? A little bit more from the Parsha. And now we're really getting to the meat of where I want to go here this morning. Vayomer Moshe el bnei Yisrael, Ru'u, kara Adonai v'shem Betzalel. You see in bold it says Betzalel. That's a person's name. We're going to get there in a second. He's Ben Uri, the son of Uri, who's the son of Hur, Lemate Yehuda, from the tribe of Judah. What was embedded in his DNA? It says, V'yimalo oto ruach Elohim b'chochma b'tvuna v'da'at v'chol malacha, endowing him, meaning Betzalel, with a divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge in every kind of craft. That's why he is chosen to be the craftsperson to build the tabernacle. Out of the offerings that the Israelites brought, and if you look closely at the words b'chochma and b'tvuna and v'da'at, I highlighted 3 letters, chet, vet, and dalet. What do those 3 letters spell? Of course, Chabad. And this is not an advertisement for you to go to Chabad next Shabbos morning, but if you want to go hang out with them sometimes, I hear they're a lot of fun. Aha! But this describes Betzalel. Betzalel, let's have some fun, as the rabbis, of course, did, and we still do, by taking a closer look at his name and what we can learn from it. Betzalel, the beit is a prefix, meaning in. Tzal, a shadow or shade, and El referring to Elohim, one of God's names. But Betzalel could mean, and does mean, in the shadow of God, which is why I have shadows running through here, this slide. Interesting. Betzalel, B'Tselem. Ooh, we are made in the shadow, in the image of God. Don't think that you are God, even if we actually are God, but God is moving through us. And Betzalel also has another meaning, which is none other than the word Batzal. What is Batzal? We are, in fact, great onions of God. A Batzal is an onion. And what's important about an onion? Well, when you cut it open, it probably will make you cry, as it does me. But we know that we have to peel away the layers to get to what's deep inside of that onion, to reveal what is the usable part of it. Remind you of the human experience? Alrighty, so here is one of my favorite poets, John O'Donohue. And now I'm putting together Rembrandt, and I'm putting together Betzalel, and I'm getting to the core of this morning's blessing, which is that each of us is an artist of our days. The greater our integrity and awareness of that truth, the more original and creative our time will become. Thank you, John O'Donohue, of blessed memory. How many of you have been to the Israel Museum? This is a work of Henry Moore, who says, to be an artist is to believe in life. Of course, Ted Geisel, who we know more commonly as Dr. Seuss, teaches, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Live into your truth. And finally, one of my favorite quotes comes from the Balinese. We have no art. We do everything as well as we can. And so, I suspect that each and every one of you beautifies your life in much the way that Rembrandt beautified our lives and Betzalel beautified the building of the Mishkan. Chidur mitzvah. This is an important phrase for you to know, all of you rabbinical students and everyone else. We do this by beautifying the commandment, by beautifying our lives with the things around us so that our Jewish lives are uplifted by the things that we have filled our homes with. Here's, for those of you who have not been in my and Renee's home, this is a Chanukiah made by a Russian artist on top and a group of our silver Kiddush cups. Here you have a number of plates that I purchased over the years at the Armenian pottery store in Jerusalem. And here is a painting by a well-known Israeli artist named Ben Sasson. Finally, some of our mezuzot, which are surrounding a fabric art that when we saw it, we said, we got to have that. And our youngest child named him Torah Man. And finally, a quote from a fellow by the name of Christian Bernard, and then Rumi will take us out. We should cultivate our awareness of the beauty of things, not for the things themselves, but for the harmony that radiates from them, which brought them is manifesting divine beauty. To be aware of what is beautiful is to open a window into the divine world and draw closer to divine wisdom, is to experience divine love, of which is said is the life and light of all things in the universe. And finally, from our teacher Rumi, that which the divine said to the rose, thereby making its beauty unfold, the divine said to my heart, and caused it to be 100 times more beautiful. So on this Shabbos day, my sweet and holy friends, may we be blessed with knowing that each and every one of us is an artist, gifted with the ability to beautify our lives and our world. Shabbat Shalom.